Belinda is going into her 12th year of homeschooling, and she has graduated one child already, and is she has one in fourth grade, and she has one who is being ninth grade. So that's crazy. She's got a fifth grader and a first grader. She graduated from TAMUCC with a bachelor degree in communication and was a teacher for 3 years. She was 4-H club manager for 3 years, and she created Corpus Christi Homeschoolers Facebook page about 11 years ago.
Are we all ready?
We sure are.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. As she said earlier, my name is Belinda Dominguez. I've been homeschooling now for 12 years, and really it's the best decision that I've ever made. Also, the hardest decision that I've ever made. And homeschooling is a blessing, and I've really enjoyed it. What I'm here to talk about today is like, of course, the homeschooling, we do all kinds of subjects in our home and we cover the basics, but there's so many opportunities out there to get out of your house or out of the classroom, so to speak, and get into the community. Whether you live here in Corpus or San Antonio or Dallas or Houston or wherever you're tuning in from, there homeschooling has become such a norm these days, and with COVID, it's even going to be more normal for everyone. Many people have decided to homeschool because we have to during COVID, but I'm pretty sure lots of people are going to see how wonderful homeschooling is and will probably continue homeschooling once this pandemic is over. And so, what I'm here to talk about today is what is there to do other than be in your house and school. And one of the main things that I'd like to say is what is in your city? Do you have museums? That's a good place to start. Libraries, especially right now during the pandemic, are all virtual. So there are many opportunities not only to see what's going on in your city, but you can get online and into a Houston. We're in Corpus, so I can get online and look and see what the Houston library is offering. And they've been offering lots of classes, and they've been offering art classes and book clubs for moms and book clubs for kids and summer reading programs. Um, live some libraries have been going live with story time. Some Even some museums are going live. One of the museums, I believe, the Kennedy Museum, was doing Mo Willems, which is a famous children's author. He was going live with um, reading some of his books and also art lessons. So right now during COVID, there's so many opportunities. Museums are doing Zooms, and you can see art shows going on. If you ever heard of Luke, I believe he's a zoologist, and he's been going on talking about animals. And start with your libraries, your local libraries. Even if you live close, if you live in Victoria, see what we have in Corpus. We're an hour away, or vice versa. San Antonio is 2 hours away. You could even go up there for a homeschool day. Some of the things that I have written down are, of course, the museums. You can look up your art museums. Lots of museums have homeschool days. Our museum has homeschool days that they offer. They even have camps during the summer, which is an amazing opportunity for homeschoolers because they get to socialize with other kids, and they get to see during summer camps, spend a whole day with kids, and they get just a little feel of what it's like to be, with other kids all day long. Um, and it's just a great learning opportunity. Summers are normally super, super busy for my family. We participate in everything that is available out there. Our local university does writing camps and reading camps and STEM camps, and for high school level, kindergarten level, every school level. Reach out to your local universities, your local colleges. Our colleges here in Corpus, Del Mar, they have choir, they have band, they do like a pre-engineering program for high school kids. I believe the A&M campus even has those type of STEM camps available. They have sport camps. So no matter where you're at in Texas, reach out to your universities, reach out to your community colleges. There's lots of opportunities for homeschoolers now because our communities have realized that there is a market for homeschoolers, and they are now doing what they can to reach out to us because there are a lot of us and we are growing more and more every year. Um, Here locally, we have the Texas State Aquarium, and they have monthly classes. I believe they have a morning and an afternoon classes for homeschoolers. The Asian Culture Museum just started doing some homeschool days. uh, the South Texas Botanical Gardens. They do classes. They have you can arrange field trips, just like they do in public school. Call up the venue and say, I have a group of 20 friends or 10 friends, and we want to go up there and do a field trip. And they can do that. They don't have to have a homeschool day for you to participate. You can just call and say, I'm going to do a field trip. Get some of your closest friends together, or if you're in a co-op, get a co-op together and go and do this field trip. Um, some other local things here are the Oso Bay Preserve. They have homeschool days and great field trips that are not homeschool days. They even have stuff on the weekends. They have nature walks. They have, birding 101. Just because it's on a Saturday morning and it's about birds, that's science. Take advantage. Science check right there. We learned about birds today. We learned about their habitat. You need to start looking at everything as an educational opportunity. And sometimes it's a little hard because a lot of us don't see going to the aquarium as an educational experience. But once you start homeschooling, stuff like that counts. That's science. They're learning. You just got to look at it differently. Instead of just going for a family trip and you're just having fun, think about all the things that their little minds are, absorbing. And then, talk about that and expand on that if you wish. Some other things that we have the art museums. We have two museums here. Two type of art museums here. We even have one on our local campus, or Texas A&M. So again, reach out to your museums, reach out to your aquariums, your botanical gardens. I know San Antonio has the Japanese gardens, amazing, beautiful. So much you can do there. You can do studies on plants. You can do nature walks. There's all kinds of opportunities there for you to gather a few friends and go and do a nature walk. Some other things that I have is like the zoos. San Antonio has a zoo, Victoria, Houston, Dallas. They have a lot of them probably have homeschool days. And if they don't, what a great field trip. Gather some friends and go check out the zoos. I know that San Antonio got like a Legoland Center in the mall, and I looked on their website, and I know they also have a homeschool day now because we were going to do that, right before COVID hit. So we haven't had the opportunity to go do that yet. The I Fly in San Antonio, where they do the indoor skydiving, I saw that they have opportunities for field trips. Take a few of your friends, you'll go and learn about physics and um, have amazing fun, but it's also educational. The museum, you can go there many, many times and always learn new things. They have different sections. Pick a section you want to learn about investigating, you go and do that. Or they have a whole thing in little kids HEB shopping. What a great opportunity to study like math and life skills. How do you go shopping? There's just so many things. I know for sure the in Victoria, I think I mentioned this already. Victoria Zoo has homeschool days, which I recently just found out about and can't wait until COVID is over so that we can go participate in that. It's about an hour from here. Um, Again, I my thing is look at what your community already has to offer. And if they don't offer something, call them and say, hey, I have a group of homeschool kids. What can you offer me? Or do you have homeschool? Do you have homeschool days? What do you have? Sometimes when, earlier on, lots of places didn't because they didn't realize that there were so many homeschoolers. Now they're starting to understand and realize like there are lots of homeschoolers and we need to reach out to this part of our community. Um, with let's see what other some stuff I have. The kids are younger. Some Misty touched on, some of the things that required or in like good citizenship as part of your Texas required curriculum. Some of the things you could do is call the police station, have some policemen come to your co-op and talk. You can do a field trip to a fire station, and you can go out there and, you know, I've actually taken a few of my kids and their friends to go and have take the firemen maybe some, banana bread and coffee, and then they get to have one-on-one conversations with these firemen. What do? They got to look at the truck. They got to tell them about fire safety. Just you have to create sometimes. Get creative with, call up the fire station and say, of course, after all this is COVID is over, you can do this. I have a few kids here. We want to go have lunch with you. Take them lunch. They'll appreciate that. And then they're talking to your kids and they're teaching them all about their career. And the fire station's a good place, the post office, the police station. um, we even had an opportunity in one of our co-ops where one of the moms knew a local judge and talked to that judge, and we were able to create a mock trial. um, and a lot of our homeschoolers got to participate. We had lawyers and bailiffs, and they had a case that they had to defend, or and so the kids took these roles on, and this judge let us use his courtroom, and he was the actual judge of the case, and he interacted with these kids and he taught them how a courtroom system works and how all that. And I don't remember what the case was about, but I know it had like something to do with like SpongeBob and Squidward. Those were the characters that were being defended. And but the kids loved it, and these were high school kids. They got to dress up. They had you know their little suits on, and they had their case, and it was just a great fun learning day. Call the local police station, courtrooms, and see what kind of opportunities they have or they could create for your homeschool kids. um I have a page, and it's called Corpus Christi Homeschoolers. I created it as a Facebook page of about 11 years ago. And my goal for that page is just I want to put opportunities on there that I can find all over the city. Sometimes I do San Antonio and Victoria's stuff, where it's reasonable to drive to. Um, I know, like, I did that, and I will put opportunities on there. And most of the places that I find these things are Facebook. The Sometimes I might overwhelm my Facebook page because I put so many opportunities on there, because every opportunity that I put on there may not be for you, but it could be for somebody else. Or, maybe if you don't like this field trip, but somebody else likes that field trip. I encourage all homeschoolers to put this information on my page, because we're all here for the same purpose. Our purpose is to educate our children. It doesn't matter what groups you're in or what co-ops you're in, we're all here for the same purpose. And so that was my idea behind my page. Um, and so sometimes I just get on Facebook and I hit events. And you guys have, I'm sure, looked up events on Facebook before. And when I hit them, I look for local events. What is going on today? What is going on this weekend? What is going on next week? Even, you know, any event can become an educational opportunity for your child. Um, so I will put the library's got things going on. Houston has NASA, and I usually put that information out there. They have a homeschool day at NASA, which I highly recommend. And I'll put that information up on there. And I encourage anybody to put information up that has to deal with any type of educational event. And even for moms, sometimes moms, we need a night out. So I'll put up stuff that maybe moms might be able to get away and do some painting with friends, or um, just anything that I think other people might enjoy. Right now, you might even just put a basic information out there. I have a lot of just different resources that I've come across. It's not necessarily outside of the house, but that I have kind of gathered some information on online stuff. I like to put out, a lot of us are new to homeschooling, and especially now, there's going to be a lot more of y'all that are probably brand new to homeschooling. And so some of the things that, we were talking about with Misty earlier is like, the all-in-one homeschool. They have a free curriculum, and they start from kinder to high school. And she mentioned something great. You don't have to use the whole curriculum. Find what you like, find what you need. I do that. I love all-in-one homeschool, their language arts, but I don't use every single thing they do. I go in there and I see, what do I like? What grade level do I like? They have lots of games. My kids love games, especially my soon to be first grader. She's learning a lot through games. And so they have a lot of math games on there. And even though we may not be doing their math curriculum, I will go and scroll through her website to find games that are online. Maybe a math game that's something that she's learning. And it takes a little time. Sometimes you have to go through. The great thing about all-in-one homeschooling is you can literally go through an entire grade day by day by day by day. And so you know exactly what it is that they have available for you to teach or to use or not use. If anyone has any questions, just please feel free to go ahead and ask. I'm just going to keep going. Don't feel free to interrupt me at any time.
We
Some
did
other
have
thing.
a question from
Okay.
somebody, and they were wanting to know what the name of your Facebook group is.
Oh, it's Corpus Christi Homeschoolers.
Okay, and
It's on
then
Facebook. And
um,
there's a public page, and then there's a private page as well. So in order to be on the private page, I right now it's kind of just open to anybody because of COVID. But once things kind of settle down again, I'd like the people that are on our personal page to be actually homeschooling and in our coastal bend area. So I will have a little bit more restrictions in the personal group once that happens. But for now, it's just kind of open for whoever's interested and is really interested in homeschooling. And the reason I do that is because there's a lot of people on there and I don't know anybody. And at some point, I'd like to know everybody personally, or at least know for sure that they are homeschooling. And that's mainly for the safety of our kids. If I'm going to be posting information that we're going to be at so and so park today, we don't need people that are not homeschoolers on our private page, knowing where we are all at that time. Any other questions, Judy?
she says, "What homeschool program do you use?" But I'm not sure exactly what she means. Elsa, can you explain a little bit? And I wanted to let you know. Oh, she says thank you. Um, I wanted to let you know that there is a in Houston. They have a dental museum. I didn't know if you guys know
Mhm.
about that. I thought it was really cool.
That I
Um,
didn't know about. I'm gonna write that down.
and then we have Ren Fest in the fall, hopefully, and they always have a homeschool day as well, and might even be a homeschool weekend. But I know they have a homeschool day. And
Oh, there's also the what is that other one where they dress up like medieval times for
that's that one,
uh
the Ren
is it,
Fest. Yeah,
what is it called? Rim?
Ren our Renaissance Fest.
Oh, the Renaissance. Okay, yes. I
Yeah.
did that in high school. That was a lot of fun.
And then I had one other thing. Can you talk a little bit about um, the community theaters? And Elsa was asking if it's K 12. No, the program she uses is not K 12. It's regular, straight up homeschooling.
In our area, we have the Harbor Playhouse, and that's a local community. We also have the Aurora Theater, and they have, or both of them actually, the Harbor Playhouse and the Aurora Theater. They do in the summer. They have summer camps, which are absolutely amazing. Um, and they teach basically our kids all about musical theater in on stage and behind the scenes. My oldest, who graduated, is actually just recently got accepted into a school in New York for musical theater. Um, Hopefully, once COVID passes, she'll make her way up there. But she's very much involved in the community theater uh, here in our community. There's also, even at Texas A&M University, they have for high school kids, they put on a 2 week uh, theater program for kids that are serious. I mean, it's amazing. They live on campus for 2 weeks, and they basically just live and breathe community theater. Um, they do regular plays, they do musical plays. Um, I'm not sure. Once upon a time, they were doing classes during like the fall and spring semesters for musical theater and regular theater. I'm not sure if that's been going on for a while. I'd have to research that. But that's another thing. Look up your uh, local theaters if you're interested in that. Colleges again, our Del Mar College, Texas A&M, even Kingsville. I've taken my children over to the Kingsville campus just to see. I think it was Charlie Brown in theater up there. San Antonio, they have theaters up there. They have the kid theater there, the Magic. I think it's called the Magic something, and they do books. Like they'll do their theater based off like if they're doing uh, Mo Willems, and you know he does all those amazing books, and they will do like a week long or 2 week long camp for these type of based on themed books, and it's amazing. The kids love them. Some other things that I've touched on is uh, 4-H. I was actually a 4-H manager for uh, Corpus Christi 4-H, and they have a curriculum. You can go on to the 4-H website and pick out curriculum and use that, and that can totally be science curriculum. I'm actually currently doing that with my soon to be fifth grader, who, of course, right now, what kid doesn't when they're in fifth grade wants to be a veterinarian. So I'm going to play on that. They have an entire veterinarian curriculum for third through fifth grade, and they have one for middle school and they have one for high school. And she is learning so much just doing this curriculum at home. They do lots of hands-on stuff. I've actually started it with some of her friends, and I'm kind of like the coach, and I kind of guide them through this curriculum. But and then of course, just reach out to your local 4-H community and find a 4-H club, because they have everything. It's not just animals. They have cooking, they have robotics, they have STEM projects, they have, of course, they have the veterinary science program, which is great because if your children continue in the vet program, especially once they get to high school, they have an entire program that once they finish it, they literally could graduate high school and be a vet tech through the 4-H program. So if your kid's interested in that and serious about it in high school, I mean, that's the way to go there. That was another thing I was going to talk about was volunteering. Like, take the time to look at different organizations. I think I have some of them here. The Texas Wildlife .org. You can do some volunteer there. They have tons of places you can go to and volunteer, and that's great. Our aquarium has places that you can go volunteer, and oh, that's so educational. It so counts as science. Even though they're working, they're learning so much behind the scenes. Some other things I have for the little kids are, and Misty mentioned some of these earlier, but ABC Mouse, Reading Eggs, those are good for kids that are learning how to read. Teach Your Monster to Read. These are some apps. My little ones learned how to do like handwriting on an app. They would literally trace letters on my phone. And then they were 3, 4 years old. So by the time we got to actual handwriting, they already knew the shapes of the letters. Time for Learning is a great place. It is a paid program, but it's literally from 3 years old to high school. Um, and you yeah, in the high school level, I believe you choose the classes that you want to take in the time for learning. All in one homeschool, it's also known as Easy Peasy. Again, those are some that I like. They also have a different site that's all in one high school. Um, Someone that I found out actually yesterday when I was doing some research, EnglishGrammar101.com. I went on there, and they have some free stuff, but they also have paid stuff, and it's literally what are nouns, what are pronouns, what are adjectives. They have videos, they have worksheets. It looks like a very promising website that I'm definitely going to be looking into once my little ones are a little bit older. Um, Another thing that a great resource that I recently found was on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and look up Liberty Kids. This is all history. They have all of them available. All their like 30-minute, 40-minute videos. It's all about history, and you can go on there and watch these videos. And then if you know Teachers Pay Teachers website, you can go into their website and there's a teacher. A few weeks ago, it was free. I don't know if it's still free. It may be, but you can download worksheets that go along with these videos, the Liberty Kid videos. And like I said, a few weeks ago, I got a few of them for free. I don't know if they're still free, but you can go along and it's history, and they have tons of videos on there that you can do. Some other things I have on here are Netflix. If you Google homeschooling with Netflix, you will get tons of resources and movies that are available. Maybe you're looking for history about the civil rights era, or documentaries that are on science, Disney nature movies. You can find lots of worksheets, free worksheets to go along with these movies. Those are now on Disney Plus, though I think they're no longer on Netflix. Um, some other interesting things that I recently found were sciencewiz.com, and they have lots of science kits that you can buy. I bought some recently. One was called Cells. And the great thing about these is they have everything in the kit already. So you don't have to be looking all over for different things to do a science experiment. Um, let's see. TexasWildlife.org. I recently found during the pandemic, they have a youth education section, and you can go on there and watch videos about all the science stuff that they talk about. And it's free. It's amazing. Um, I think that may be everything that I could think of. Let me check all my notes here. Also, I have on here to look at other libraries, not just libraries in your area. For example, here in our area, we have our Corpus libraries, but we also have our Roxtown libraries and our Portland libraries, and those are amazing libraries, and they have lots of resources for kids too. Um, and as Misty said earlier, your best bet is find a homeschool group, because that's where you're going to find your moms that have been doing it for a long time, and they can help you. And there's so much information out there on homeschooling and curriculums. And I used to be, when I first started homeschooling, I was that one person that, like, oh no, I'm going to do just Bob Jones and only Bob Jones, or just a Becca and only a Becca. And now I do everything. I'm eclectic and everything. I love Charlotte Mason. I love her ideas and the way she goes about things. I even really enjoy the unschooling philosophy and how kids learn on their own. My child does a lot of that. We're not unschoolers, but she does a lot of projects on her own that she's decided she wants to do. Coding.org, that's an amazing web page also, where there are classes and they teach these kids how to code. She knows how to code. I have no idea what she's doing. I just watch her. She's completely self-taught in that. That's something she loves and she enjoys, and I let her do that on her own. So, I give them time. For me, everybody is different. When I first started homeschooling, I thought, oh, we have to be sitting down at a table for 6 hours. I had a schedule that was from 9 to 9:30. We were going to do, morning time, morning prayer, whatever we did, and from 10 to 11, it was going to be math, and from 11:30 to 12:30, and honestly, it used to drive me crazy. And because I would never be on time. So give yourself, space, and give yourself, um, just give yourself time. If you are starting to freak out and you're crying, or if your children are crying, then you know what? You need to call it a day, even if you just started homeschooling an hour ago, because those days will happen. Especially if you have little kids and if you've never homeschooled before. These kids are not seeing you as a teacher. You're their mom. And that's okay because eventually they'll get it. You've been teaching them their entire lives, and eventually they're going to see you, your mom, and you just have to think of education and homeschooling is just a part of life. My philosophy is now I don't homeschool. I just live my life, and as we're living our life, we throw in some homeschool and we get things done. I don't know, Judy, does anyone have any specific questions that I can answer?
We have one asked that when you're done with the talk tonight, if you would put your actual link on the feed of for your homeschool group, and then also let's see, she was asking a little bit more about um, I guess the curriculums, but most of us use kind of a hodgepodge. Um, and or at least once you've done it for a little while, you start using a little bit of a hodgepodge. So,
My my recommendation, like for new homeschoolers, like if you're completely brand new and if you are if, if you're this is your first year, you have no idea what you're doing, do something like time for learning, because time for learning, it's all video, it's not too expensive. I don't know what the rate is now. It used to be like $20 a month and then it added on per kid. um, but everything is on there and it's video and it's very interactive and it just kind of gives you some leeway until you kind of figure out what you're doing. So my recommendation when you first start doing time for learning is really good. But then you'll start to understand how the process works, and then you might want to start adding in things. My little one right now, who's going into first grade, I have her on time for learning because time for learning has a great phonics program. And even though we haven't, she did a Becca math book, she's not it's not the best thing for her. Like she loves being on the computer. What kid doesn't, right? But she loves it and she seems to learn quicker. Yes, I have the workbook, a first grade workbook, which will be starting. But right now she's already doing first grade in time for learning. And she likes it and there's no tears. And this is my third child that I'm homeschooling. So if she's just getting some stuff done and we're not crying, we've accomplished a lot for the day. So after the third one, you're just kind of like, let's just read a book today and see if we can get through this day. So, um, some other things, let's see, extramath.com is really good. It's been one of my favorites because they learn, it's like um, flashcards. And this teacher will say, okay, let's race. And they race for flashcards. And they're just learning adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. And it only lets them do it for 10 or 15 minutes a day. Another thing that I didn't write on here is typingclub.com. My kids are on there. You know, uh, they need to learn how to type in today's world. So I put them on there. They do have a cursive handwriting book too that my fifth grader has been doing for 2 years. So we were talking about not finishing books. Sometimes it takes you a few years to finish a handwriting book, but I mean, it's handwriting. It's okay. Eventually, you'll learn that like you're never really behind. You just have to go at your kid's level, and it's going to take time to get there because it probably took me 5 years before I felt actually comfortable in homeschooling and knew what I was doing. And honestly, even today, as my kids are getting older and I've already graduated one, none of the kids are alike. They all have different learning styles. They all have, one kid might like workbooks, one kid might like being on the computer. Um, some kids just want to read books all day long. And I have a child like that. All she wants to do is read. So we learn a lot through library books, through, they're called living books. Um, and out of that you just try to get things done in there and narrations and copy work and there's so much stuff. um any other questions, Judy,
um,
or anything else you want me to touch on?
no,
I
but I
think
did
I
want to
covered
mention
everything.
that the uh, libraries in Houston, you can join those for free even if you don't live in Houston, I believe. and they all have, and even the libraries in Corpus have a couple of different audio program things that you can get. And I
Yeah.
also noticed that Audible started a Audible for kids.
Um, since the pandemic, it's opened up. So many people across like the world have opened up their doors to allowing educational things to get through. I was absolutely amazed that when we first went down into like quarantine and stuff, all these museums were having all these programs, all these like, like gosh, I don't even remember, like NASA and the Kennedy centers, and they were just doing all kinds of programs online for free. And it was amazing. And honestly, we had to stop homeschooling just so that we could take advantage of all these resources that were all of a sudden available to everybody because nobody's kids were in school. A friends of mine and I would joke that like once school started up again, we're going to have to like protest that these places keep these things open for homeschoolers because they weren't available. And now, right now, because the world is the way it is, there's so many opportunities out there. I mean, there's artists that are coming online and giving you art lessons, and you're getting an art lesson from like a famous artist or a musician, or honestly, we had to stop homeschooling for a little bit just to take advantage of art lessons and music lessons and all these things that were going on online.
Okay, we did have a question. Somebody was asking if they're going to be able to be doing sports. And I don't know that we know the answer to that, but I know
Right.
that uh, the local places in Corpus Christi are doing the volleyball and the track. I know the track people just ended. They're having a retreat right now, but the cross country's fixing to start up. And the right now most sports are pretty much kind of on hold, or at least they're thinking. They don't know what they're doing exactly. But if you keep up with the stuff there, they will be opening eventually because homeschool kids love to do sports.
Yeah. And they're all available. And in our area, I'm pretty sure it's available across South Texas or across Texas. But like in our area, we have two homeschool groups that do sports. And one of the things a lot of new homeschoolers are worried about is, do our kids lose out? And honestly, they don't. There's sports available, there's cheerleading, there's, I think Missy said there was baseball now and basketball and track. And a few years ago, we actually had a homeschool kid who got a scholarship to play football at a university, and he was one of our homeschool boys. And so even eh, you know parents had to make that happen. You have to make things happen for your kids when you're homeschooling. I'm sure some parent called recruiters to come and see this kid play football, and he got a scholarship. And it's amazing because that's what lots of parents worry about is my kid going to have a prom? We have absolutely amazing proms for our homeschoolers. And you know our homeschool proms are beautiful, and our public school prom, compared to the homeschool ones, like they're not equal, and they're so blessed to have these opportunities. They have homecoming days. If you do the high school co-op that's available, if I remember correctly, they have like homeschool weeks where they have all these themed days, just like at in public school. I believe they even had pepper rallies, right, Judy? Do you remember? I believe they even had pepper rallies for the kids
Yes,
recently.
yes, they did.
Um,
Spirit Days. So, okay. Well, I think we're doing pretty good. We've got some time left here. If you've covered everything that you think you have, I have a little bit to cover, and then
okay.
we can move on. So, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you
You're very
for
welcome. Thank you for
um,
having me.
being with us today. And we really appreciate all the work you do and have given us. Thanks. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit. It looks like we have some brand new folks on here, and I didn't get to cover much of what I had yesterday. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the different things that are going on in the kind of the lingo, I guess, for the different groups and things like that. She was talking a little bit about unschooling and things like that that seem to be like terms that most people don't use. But unschooling is basically where you pretty much just do life, and true homeschoolers don't do any like workbooks or anything like that. That pretty much everything is learned as you go along. And those are the people that are out there building houses and things like that for their kids so that they can learn how to do the measurements and all that stuff. And it's a really cool idea. Most of us are kind of doing a little bit. I did unschooling, but I did not do pure unschooling. My kids still had to do math curriculum. They still had to do different reading books, and they still had to learn how to take tests and things like that. But my unschooling part of it was that I didn't use a curriculum particularly for history or for the economics and that sort of thing. We did speech and debate. And so everything that they did was geared towards competition. The way I see speech and debate for high school is that it is pretty much they write a research paper on a topic that's given to them, and then they spend that year defending that research paper to their peers and rewriting it and learning all about the subject. And they learn both the positive and the negative on the subject. And those subjects could be anything from trade with China, South Korea, and Japan to agriculture policy in the United States. One year they did electronic surveillance. And I'll tell you what, some of that electronic surveillance stuff is really, really just scary what's going on. But we're kind of all aware of that because of the advertising that we get. But that was several years before we even realized that that was going on. So it was kind of neat to learn. They learned a lot. They learned how to write really well for that. They learned how to present and speak in public because of that. The other half of the speech and debate is speeches on and interpretation speeches where they would do like they would act out part of a book or something like that. And those things they use they would use literature for. And some of them they would actually take the literature and learn the literature, and then they would go into the room and they would do what we call an impromptu speech. And that is something that they had to learn. Of course, they had to learn the literature first, but then they had to be able to come up with speaking on the fly. And that was a really, really important skill, I feel like, for a lot of people. Another lingo word we use is co-ops, which she talked a lot about. Co-ops are basically, the fundamental idea behind it is that a bunch of moms get together and they teach each other's kids what they need to learn or what they want to teach them. And so it ends up being really good because some people hate art and some people love it. Some people hate science and some people just live for it. So it really works out well if you can get a balanced group of moms together to start getting in there and teaching your kids those different things. It also works really well for the social aspects of people making friends, because I'm sure everybody knows during COVID it has been almost impossible to get out there and hang out with your friends. And that makes it really hard. Homeschoolers have to deal with that a lot. So you have to be really intentional about going and taking your kids to hang out with other people. There's not, you're not just putting them on the bus and they're not going to see each other in the hallways. They actually hang out with their friends more because we are intentional about it, I believe, and they're not getting yelled at for talking during lunch or whatever. So it ends up being really a good lesson for the kids on how to use their time wisely, because a lot of times with things that as my kids were growing up, Friday was the day that we pretty much didn't do any school. We did all of our school Monday through Thursday, and then Friday was hang out with your friends day. And in the place we were, we had they would have drama groups, and you could go and hang out with that. They had dance classes, and you could go and hang out with your friends for that. When they were little, we had park days, and we would just all go and hang out. And it's as much for the moms, to be honest with you, as it is for the kids, because when you're stuck at home all day long and nobody to talk to but children, sometimes it gets a little bit crazy. So, and you really can't be on the phone because the kids will be nagging you once you get on the phone. So those are some of the things that you have to be aware of when you're homeschooling. Some of the awesome things about homeschooling are that you are in charge. You're not having to worry about somebody teaching your kids stuff that you don't want them to teach them. You have, now that means that you have to teach those things though. So you do kind of have to keep that in mind. Some of the other things that are awesome about homeschooling is that, as Misty mentioned earlier today, they're not just friends with kids their own age. They're not just worried about, okay, you're a year younger than me or you're a year older than me, so we're not like the same. But you have so many people with multiple age children that they get to go and hang out with. There was one day when we first started homeschooling, we went to Park Day, and earlier in the day we had been at McDonald's, and both of the places had playgrounds. And it kind of struck my husband very strongly was that at the McDonald's, the big kids were pushing the little kids out of the way. And at the Park Day, the little kids were actually being, they were being helped up with the bigger kids helping the little kids to do the ladders and the slides and making sure that the little kids don't get hurt. And it was just a really cool side-by-side comparison. And that's not to say that all kids are that way, because they certainly aren't. But when you're in a group that has people with all different ages, the kids learn to do that. The other thing they do is they learn how to deal with other adults, which, when you're in a public school, you have your teacher, you have the principal, and you have your parents most of the time. Whereas if you're in a group of a whole bunch of moms, most of the times those moms are keeping an eye on a whole bunch of kids. And if one of the moms tells my kid, you slow down, you're going to hurt, or something like that, my kids know how to deal with it. They know to respect that person. They know to stop. The other thing they do is if somebody walks up to them and starts having a conversation with them as an adult, some kids just like curl up into a little ball and don't deal well with that at all. So with the people that you have many adults talking to you, then you don't even think about it. You just talk to them like they're people. And so it works out really well for that. Let's see. Does anybody have any questions? Elsa or Ari or Monique? No? Okay. Well, so I will keep an eye on that. One of the other things I wanted to talk a little bit about was how to make homeschooling fit your family. And Belinda and Misty both talked about some of that, where you need to go and find out what your teaching styles are and what your learning styles are. And we're going to be talking a lot about that this coming weekend. But not everybody teaches the same way their kid learns. And so it's something you have to really think about when you're buying curriculum. You don't want to buy a lot of curriculum. That's what Belinda was saying. Don't go out and spend a bunch. You can get time for learning to start out with. And find out what your kid likes. Because if your kid doesn't like to do workbooks and you just spent $200 on workbooks, you got a real problem because your budget's gone and your kid won't use the workbooks. When they're really little, and actually my whole philosophy with homeschooling is I wanted my kids to learn how to, I wanted them to be able to research, and I wanted them to love to learn. Because if you love to learn and you can do research, you can do anything you want to in your life. And that way you can always learn how to do something new. And if you're in homeschool, a lot of times you're teaching them the responsibility of getting their work done on their own, especially when they're older. And you're also teaching them that if they want something, they have to go out and get it. They have to decide, okay, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to go do. And once they figure that out, then they can go find a coach, or they can go find a book, or they can go find something that can teach them how to do it. And then as long as they have the courage to get out there and do it, then they're good. So those are some of the things. The curriculums themselves, you can usually go, like Misty was saying, you can go to Mardell, or you can go to, there's a homeschool store in Houston, and I'm sure Dallas has some too, but Barnes & Noble's has some curriculum. You can sometimes check it out online. You can look at reviews, just like you would for a restaurant. But keep in mind that everybody's kids are different. Everybody's homeschool looks differently. Just like when you have 3 children and they're completely different, it's the exact same thing with homeschooling. They're going to be taught different. They're going to want to learn differently. I had one, we didn't know she had a learning disability, she had dyslexia. And so when we first started out, I was teaching her. She was in kindergarten, and I was teaching her phonics, and she would read the sentence, and then she would stop and she would read it back with passion. Like she'd read the phonetics out first, and then she'd go back and read it with passion. So it took her twice as long to read anything. And we finally figured out, okay, she's not really comprehending the words the first time around. So we switched up about second grade to whole word method, and that worked a lot better. And when I did that, I also switched them to spelling those words at the same time, because it was right about that same time that they needed to learn how to spell. So first thing I did is I got a book that said the 100 most popular words that are used in the United States language, the words most often used. And so I wrote down, I think it was actually 500 words. I used the first 100 to begin with. And then I wrote them on a card, and then we made these little shoebox animals. My daughter made a little unicorn out of a tissue box, and my son made a lion. And they had the back open, and then they had a little mouth that we had cut open. And so when we did it, if they got the word wrong, they would put it in the back. But if they got the word right, they got to feed the little animal through the little hole in the mouth. Stupid, I know, but they're second grade and kindergarten. They loved it. So that's one of those things that it just made it fun. And any kind of little thing that you can do to make it fun is one of those things that is really completely worth it. Because, as Belinda said, you don't want them crying. And there's always going to be tears, especially for my kids in math. But when you get down to it and you get done with it, it ends up being very, very rewarding, because you can see them moving to the next level. And a lot of times you don't see that with the schools, even private schools, because they're gone so much that the teachers see that progress, but you don't see it because you don't know what they're doing. One of the things that I really, really liked about homeschooling was that I got to spend a lot of time with my kids. I figured a couple of years there I was really busy, and I was like, okay, well, maybe we should think about putting them in school. But then I saw my friends had their kids in school, and the kids they'd go to school for 8 hours, and then they would come home and they would have 2 to 3 hours worth of homework. And I could get school done in 2 to 3 hours. So why would I spend that 2 to 3 hours doing homework after missing them all day long? And so we ended up, I had a lot more time with my kids and a lot more interaction with them, which sometimes can drive you crazy, but most of the time it was good. And it helped us to really have a very strong bond, and to just have a lot more fun. I think we were able to do that. And when you have your own business, which is what I had, sometimes you have to teach the children things like, okay, if mommy is on the phone, you don't come in the room. Those sorts of things. Or if mommy is on the phone, unless there's blood, you don't come in the room. That sort of thing. So those things, the kids just know after a while of you teaching them. They know that, okay, if we're having a discussion on the phone, you got to be a little bit more quiet, or you got to close the bedroom door, something like that. So you can do business while doing this. And I know a lot of homeschoolers, or a lot of people that are doing crisis schooling right now, really need to know that it is possible to make money and still have your children at home. So I think that's all I've got today. And anybody have any questions? I'm not seeing any. So let's see. And I guess I will, let's see. Oh, okay. Thanks, Ileana. And I know I'll see you this weekend. So, okay. Well, I'm going to let y'all go.